Welcome to Session 3 of Module 10, where we will be tackling the ICT trends and their implications for climate change and green growth. So what does this mean? It sounds very fancy. The objectives for this session are to discuss the relevance of ongoing and emerging technological development for developing countries, and then to provide an overview of the policy considerations for promoting investments in ICTs for responding to climate change. Two key ICT trends have emerged that are relevant to climate change and green growth. These are digitization and dematerialization. Okay. So what do we mean by the first term, digitization? Digitization is the process of changing manual things into digital things, changing written records into digital data, where before we had to keep stacks of papers this high that can all be compressed into a teeny tiny file in a flash drive. Okay, and this has to be read electronically. So that is digitization, the conversion of records and processes from manual or analog into digital or electronic. Okay, and the second trend is dematerialization. It sounds like a term from the movie Star Trek. If you know this is a space sci-fi movie and TV show where you have people or aliens suddenly disappearing from one location, dematerializing in effect, and then appearing somewhere else. Okay, so that means the material is gone. In essence, this is one trend that is now happening because of the proliferation of computer technologies. This is the replacement of human activities and the replacement of goods and services with equivalents that are digital, electronic, not there, not tangible, but they exist. Okay, so that is dematerialization. In my next slide, I have this funny picture of a guy who's probably my age, born around the time that I was born. And then he's carrying technology that I know. He's got a video camera, he's got a tape deck, he's got a huge phone there that used to be our phones, and he's got tapes for what we call video cassettes. And you don't have this technology anymore. Everything in that picture is now in a single handheld mobile phone. Everything in that picture has been turned digital and dematerialized. We don't have to carry all that equipment with us in huge suitcases anymore like we used to do. Now it's as slim and compact as your mobile phone. And that in itself is amazing. If someone had told me this 20 years ago, that all of that technology would become so small, I would not have believed it. But it has happened. And because of that, we can suddenly become more efficient. We can become faster. And we can control and analyze and process much more data than we used to. Okay, so what are these technologies that are part of dematerialization? Well, we have what is known as video conferencing. You can set up a camera in different locations and link them together as a network. And if you have people sitting behind those cameras, they can talk to each other. And this means they won't have to travel in order to meet. This can reduce the travel, especially if some people cannot travel. Then this video conferencing technology enables them to get connected to those they need to reach without having to leave the area where they're living or working. Okay. We have technologies called virtualization, which makes things virtual or digital. We have miniaturization, which makes things smaller and smaller and smaller. So now you're looking at computers that may be the size of a thumbtack, a pinhead, nanocomputers. They're all molecular now. So this technology is making the products that use them even smaller, right? We have sensors, which are devices for gathering data about our environment. Perhaps they're collecting pollution data, could be temperature, humidity, anything that we wish to define. We are now getting technology that will help us measure them and record them and transmit that data to a site where the data will be stored in a database for later analysis. Okay, so this is all what we call networked, yeah? And networked in a wireless way, so that you don't have to have wires coming out of these sensors. Instead, they can use technologies like SMS to send over the data. Okay, this means that we can have a wider spread of our sensors and make them not so offensive or not obtrusive, you know? Hidden in our environment, but still collecting data. There are applications for this, especially for understanding our environment and how it's changing because of the climate. And finally, there is what we call cloud computing, where you have several computers linked together, taking apart huge calculation processes, and then working on them simultaneously, so that you don't have to have one large computer doing it, but you can have several computers involved in the network. This is what we call as cloud computing. Okay. And finally, the technology that may be most popular among all of those I've listed is social networking. If you have a Twitter account, if you have a Facebook account, Weibo perhaps in China, any kind of online site that allows you to exchange data within a network of people that you wish to exchange to. This is what you call social networking. And we do it for social purposes. And these social purposes can include abating climate change and pursuing green growth. So we feel that these are the important technologies to watch out for. So I'm going to give you a little example, which I found very interesting, where technology has actually directly helped in the global discussions on climate change. We have what we call the Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And this Conference of Parties are basically the nation countries who have signed the framework and are concerned with climate change, and they want to do something about it. Now, every now and then, they will meet as a convention. And then this is what we call a Conference of Parties, COP. At the 15th session in Copenhagen in December 2009, this was the first time that the Conference of Parties started using telepresence, which is based on video conferencing technology. So what they did was they set up meetings with delegates from all around the world, but these delegates did not come to Copenhagen. So they were talking to each other through video conferencing. They didn't have to fly to Copenhagen, but they were able to give their input into the discussions. And then subsequent Conference of Parties meetings were using telepresence in order to generate discussion among different people, different kinds of people, different groups of people around the world who are interested in climate change and what it may mean, and who have strong ideas about what to do. For that single event in 2009, they had more than 250 hours of discussion using telepresence. And this helped promote strong leadership and drive in the different nation countries who are members of the Conference of Parties to the UN Framework on Climate Change, Framework Convention on Climate Change. So it's very interesting. You can have your voice, but you don't have to be physically present in Copenhagen. Next, I want to talk about another trend which we have to consider since we are promoting ICTs in tackling climate change and green growth. Especially on the green growth side, we should be sensitive about e-waste and the need to recycle electronic equipment. So, first of all, we have to understand that all electronics contain toxic material, hazardous material, heavy metals especially. And the creation of these electronics and later on dismantling them may lead to the leaching of these toxic materials into the environment, into our water. Okay, so then we have to have a system for recovering all this electronics that are no longer desired, no longer used, and then dealing with them as e-waste so that we can recover these toxic or hazardous materials before they can harm the environment and harm people. So therefore, countries should think about an e-waste management strategy as more and more people, more and more organizations are investing in ICTs. So in an e-waste management strategy, what is needed is an efficient collection method so that these electronics may be recovered from people. And then second, safe dismantling procedures, safe pre-processing of the electronic components so that they can be taken out of these devices and then be prepared for recycling. And finally, safe recovery of recyclable materials and treatment of these hazardous materials. So what's recyclable in an electronic? Well, there's the plastic casings, but there's also gold, copper, and other heavy metals that are difficult to mine. And since they are already in these electronics, they may as well be removed and reused. They can be reused. So then the idea of e-waste management would help prevent the leaching or the unsafe introduction of these heavy metals into our environment. This brings us to the idea of green computing, or that computers must be green from start to finish. Electronics must be green from start to finish. It starts with the design, and then manufacture, and then how we use these equipment, and finally how we throw them away, how we dispose of them. Every aspect of it must be green. So what do we mean by green? First, that it has a minimal impact on the environment. In other words, that it does not require too much energy, and it does not require too much materials to produce it, and it does not harm the environment when we finally dispose of it. But second, green also means that it's economically viable, that it will be profitable for companies that produce electronics to go green. You know, green like the color of money. So then it's not necessarily an idea to throw away profit. No. What we're saying is that now is the time for companies to start thinking about their impact on the environment, and this will make them more desirable in the eyes of the consumer, who is responsible and who wants to purchase equipment that have been made properly without harm to people or to the environment. In this regard, there are now what we call certification. And certification in the industry made by members of the industry to prove that their methods and their energy use are within acceptable limits. So this is why sometimes when we buy, for example, laptops, they will have a sticker that says Energy Star. This means it's consuming energy at an acceptable rate, and it's not consuming too much. And EPEAT is another certification organization where it reviews the manufacturing process of a company that produces electronics and then grades them as to whether their methods are acceptable or if they're harmful to the environment. So then to have an EPEAT certification means that the company is taking steps to go green. And what we have are countries and companies that sign up to be part of these certification systems. So the next time you're going to purchase or invest in ICT, take a look and find out if they have Energy Star and EPEAT or other kinds of certifications that show that they are sustainable and that they are not harming the environment. I'd like to bring a little case study of recycling in India called We Recycle. So the National Environment Policy of India was introduced in 2006. And this policy exhorted the country to reduce waste, to promote the recovery and reuse of materials so that new material need not be taken out of the earth, to extract valuable components like gold and copper from waste, and then to promote recycling companies that are capable of using highly hazardous and polluting techniques, highly hazardous materials, and then find techniques that are safe so that they can recycle this e-waste. On the other hand, if they can find companies that are polluting, then these will be regulated so that they will not be permitted to pollute the environment even as they are recycling. So the recycling companies themselves have to be following safe methods. So within this national policy, a project was established in 4 cities in India, namely Delhi, Kolkata, Pune, and Bangalore. In these cities, the e-waste collection points were established so that the citizens were informed that when they want to throw away their electronics, they just need to go to these specific collection points and they can dispose of them there. And from these e-waste collection points, the material would be gathered and then brought to recycling companies that have been reviewed and whose processes were deemed safe. And their workers were trained in environmentally sound recycling practices and standards. So a major component of this project was to train informal sector workers in how to do the recycling safely. And the project continues to do research and development into these practices so that they can promote safe e-waste recovery and reuse, and that in so doing, there is actually a sector that is benefiting, and that's the recycling sector, so that they can also profit from this. So then this We Recycle project is a win-win-win. The government gets to protect its environment. The citizens are assured that their e-waste are being treated properly, and then those involved in the recycling themselves are making money from the hazardous materials that they've recovered and they can resell. So I would like to put forth some policy considerations that are important to the idea of these ICT trends and what it would mean for the different countries of the Asia Pacific. First, we could maximize the ICT trends that promote a smaller ecological and energy footprint. This means that we can help define policy that would promote wise energy use in the creation or manufacture of ICTs and in the design of the technology themselves, so that they would require less in energy as they are being used throughout its lifetime. Second, countries can think about setting up national standards for the assessment of eco-friendliness and energy efficiency of technology. Okay. Third, countries should think about the use and disposal of older microprocessors or older computers and computing platforms. How long should they be used? Can they be recycled through other applications that perhaps don't require much computing? So then they can still be benefited from. And then when they finally are broken down, how will they be disposed of? Okay. This means that the countries can also think about promoting e-recycling as an industry. Fourth, countries can think about promoting the shift to green computing by setting out incentives for companies who will be manufacturing electronics to do it in a very green or sustainable and safe way. And finally, to make ecological footprint a part of criteria for government purchase. Government is the single largest procurer or purchaser of goods and services. Just because of its size, it spends quite a bit of money on purchase of anything, including electronics. Now, oftentimes, our criteria will be cost effectiveness, yes? Not just looking for the best price, but also looking for goods and services that will meet a minimum standard, right? And then cost can become secondary. But then what about the ecological footprint of these goods and services? This is now a new criterion, a new basis for evaluation that's being suggested. Why not make ecological footprint a part of the decision-making of government when it's going to purchase goods and services? So there are already some countries that are looking into this, making it part of their general procurement strategy. And so this is something that can also be considered in our pursuit for green growth. Yes. So I hope that in the rest of the module, when we talk about the applications for climate change adaptation, for climate change mitigation, and then for green growth, that we keep these in the back of our mind, these policy considerations. Thank you very much.